Violence does not always begin with weapons. Often, it begins with words. Not loud words, not emotional words, but calm, neutral, administrative language. Words that feel harmless, professional, necessary.
History teaches us something uncomfortable. Before violence becomes visible, it is first made acceptable through language. Not by justifying harm directly, but by removing responsibility from it. People rarely say, "I chose to hurt someone." They say, "I followed orders. It was protocol. That's the procedure." And with those words, something important disappears. The person. Language has the power to reshape how we perceive actions. It can turn choices into inevitabilities, decisions into processes, harm into routine. When language becomes technical, moral judgment fades into the background. Consider how different these two sentences feel. "I decided this person would suffer," versus "this outcome was necessary under existing guidelines." The second sentence feels colder, cleaner, less human, and that is the point. Psychologists call this moral distancing, a process where language creates psychological space between the individual and the consequences of their actions. The more abstract the language, the easier it becomes to act without feeling. Violence framed emotionally triggers resistance. Violence framed bureaucratically triggers compliance. This is why systems rely so heavily on formal language, not because it is clearer, but because it is quieter. Words like collateral damage, neutralization, processing, relocation, compliance enforcement. None of these words describe pain. None describe fear. None describe death. They describe operations, and operations do not require empathy. Language does not only describe reality, it constructs it. When harm is described as a procedure, the mind treats it as one. The brain stops asking, "Is this right?" and starts asking, "Is this done correctly?" This shift is subtle, but it is one of the most dangerous psychological transitions a human can make. Because morality lives in questions, procedure lives in answers. Once language supplies ready-made answers, reflection becomes unnecessary. This is how responsibility dissolves. In many historical systems of harm, responsibility was never denied, it was simply distributed. One person writes the policy, another approves it, another enforces it, another documents the outcome. Each step is small, each step feels detached, each step sounds harmless when described. I just signed the form, I just followed the checklist, I just executed the task. No single sentence admits harm, but together they produce it. Language becomes a shield, not against criticism from others, but against awareness within oneself. When people describe their actions using passive language, the mind subtly removes the actor from the sentence. Force was applied. Targets were identified. Mistakes were made. Notice what is missing. Who applied the force? Who identified the targets? Who made the mistakes? No one, and therefore everyone. This grammatical distance creates moral distance. The more passive the language, the less personal the responsibility feels. This is not accidental. Institutions learn over time which words reduce resistance, which phrases sound official enough to bypass conscience. Calm language signals legitimacy. Legitimacy signals safety, and safety suppresses doubt.
There is a reason authority rarely sounds angry. Anger invites questioning. Calmness invites trust. A calm voice saying, "This is protocol," feels safer than an angry voice saying, "Do this now." Because calm authority feels rational, and rationality feels moral, even when it is not. Language also fragments time. When actions are described as part of a long process, no single moment feels decisive. This is just one step. This is temporary. This will be reviewed later. But later rarely comes, and when it does, the language has already done its work. Responsibility has faded. Another mechanism is euphemism, replacing harsh realities with softer words. We do not say kill, we say eliminate. We do not say cage, we say detain. We do not say harm civilians, we say unintended consequences. Euphemisms do not hide reality from victims. They hide it from perpetrators. They allow people to participate in harm without ever emotionally touching it. And the more distant the language, the easier repetition becomes. This is how harm becomes routine. Once something has a name that sounds normal, doing it starts to feel normal. Paperwork follows. Forms accumulate. Metrics are tracked. Violence becomes data, and data does not bleed. At this point, the system no longer needs cruelty. It only needs compliance. People inside such systems are often not aggressive. They are polite, orderly, professional. They do not wake up intending to cause harm. They wake up intending to do their job. And language helps them believe that doing their job is separate from moral responsibility. This separation is an illusion. Language can delay guilt. It cannot erase it. Many people who participated in harmful systems later say the same thing. I didn't realize what I was part of at the time. But the truth is more precise. They realized, just not all at once. Language allowed awareness to arrive in fragments, too small to stop momentum, too abstract to feel urgent. This is why changing language matters, not because words are symbolic, but because they are psychological tools. When language becomes honest, responsibility returns. Compare again. It was protocol versus I chose to follow this protocol. The second sentence restores the self, and with it, discomfort. Discomfort is not a flaw. It is a warning system. Systems work hardest to remove discomfort because discomfort slows action. But speed without reflection is how harm scales. This does not mean language should be emotional. It means language should be accurate. Accuracy reconnects actions to consequences, and consequences to people. When we describe harm clearly, we reintroduce friction, and friction is where morality lives. The most dangerous language is not hateful language. It is neutral language used to justify harm. Because neutral language feels objective, and objectivity feels unquestionable. But no system is neutral. And no procedure exists without choice. Every protocol is written by someone, approved by someone, executed by someone. Language hides this chain unless we force it back into view. The question is not whether language can cause harm. It already does. The question is whether we notice when words stop describing reality and start anesthetizing it. Because once language removes responsibility, violence no longer feels violent. It feels necessary, professional, normal. And that is when it becomes most dangerous.